Good day, viewers. Read the Bible with me. Exodus chapter 18. Meeting with Jethro. Jethro, the priest of Midian, father in law of Moses, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, when Yahweh brought Israel out of Egypt. After Moses had sent away Zipporah, his wife, Jethro, his father in law, received her and her two sons. The first, Moses had called Gershom to remember that he had been a guest in a foreign land, and the other, Eliezer, for he said, "The God of my father came to help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh." So Jethro came with Moses' wife and sons to the desert where the people had encamped at the mountain of God. Moses was told, "Your father in law Jethro is here. He has come with your wife and her two sons." So Moses went out to meet his father in law, and bowing low before him, he kissed him. And when each had inquired about the other's health, they entered the tent. Moses then told his father in law all that Yahweh had done to Pharaoh and Egypt for the sake of Israel, and all the difficulties they had met with on the way, and how Yahweh had saved them. Jethro rejoiced at all Yahweh's goodness to Israel in freeing them from the power of Egypt. And he said, "Blessed be Yahweh, who has delivered you from the power of Egypt and Pharaoh, and has rescued the people from the grip of Egypt. I know that Yahweh is against than all the gods, for he delivered his people when they were being oppressed." Then Jethro brought a burnt offering and other sacrifices to offer to God, and Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to share this meal with Moses' father in law in the presence of God. The next day, Moses took his seat to administer justice for the people who stood around him from morning till night. His father in law, seeing all the work of Moses for the people, said to him, "What is this you are doing for the people? Why do you alone sit and judge while all the people stand around you from morning till night?" Moses answered, "It is the people who come to me to know God's will. When there is a dispute, they bring it to me to decide between the two parties, and I teach them God's decrees and laws." Jethro replied, "What you are doing is not good. You and your people will wear yourselves out, for the work is too heavy, and you cannot do it alone. Now listen to the advice I am going to give you, and God be with you. You will be people's representative before God and bring their cases to Him. You will teach them the statutes and laws and the way they must live and what they must do. You choose among the people capable, God fearing men, men of truth who hate a bribe, and appoint them as leaders for groups of 1,000, 100, 50, and 10. They will administer justice at all times, bringing to your attention only those cases of major importance, while they deal with all those of lesser importance. That will ease your burden, since they will be sharing it with you. If you do this, God will guide you, and you will be able to cope with this duty, and all these people will reach their place in peace. Moses followed his father in law's advice and did as he said. He chose capable men from among the Israelites and placed them as leaders for groups of 1,000, 100, 50, and 10. They administered justice at all times, bringing difficult cases to Moses, but judging all other cases themselves. Then Moses let his father in law return to his own country. Exodus chapter 19. Exactly 2 months after the Israelites had left Egypt, they arrived at the wilderness of Sinai. They arrived there coming from Rephidim and camped in the wilderness of Sinai. The Israelites camped there in front of the mountain, but Moses went up to God, and Yahweh called to him from the mountain, saying, "This is what you are to say, and explain to the Israelites. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you listen to me and keep my covenant, you shall be my very own possession among all the nations. For all the earth is mine, but you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." And he added, "This is what you are to say to the people of Israel." So Moses went and summoned all the elders of the people and related to them all that Yahweh had commanded him to say. All the people responded with one voice, "All that Yahweh has said, we will do." Moses then brought back to Yahweh the people's response. Yahweh spoke to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people may hear me speaking with you and trust you always." Then Moses related to Yahweh what the people had said. Again, Yahweh spoke to Moses, "Go to the people and have them sanctified today, and tomorrow let them wash their garments and be ready to the third day. For on the third day, Yahweh will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. You will fix a limit for the people round about, saying, 'Take care not to go up to the mountain or touch its base. Whoever touches the mountain will die. No hand shall touch him, but he will be stoned or shot down by arrows. Be it man or beast, he shall not live. Only when the ram's horn sounds may some of them go up to the mountain." Moses came down from the mountain to the people and purified them, and they washed their garments. He then said to the people, "Be ready in 3 days and abstain from sexual relations." On the morning of the third day, there was thunder and lightning and a dense cloud over the mountains, and a very loud trumpet blast was heard. All the people in the camp trembled. Moses then made the people leave the camp to meet God and stand at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was completely covered in smoke because Yahweh had come down in fire, and the smoke rose as from a furnace. The whole mountain shook violently, while the blast of the trumpet became louder and louder. Moses spoke, and God replied in thunder. When Yahweh had come down to the summit of Mount Sinai, God called Moses, who went to the summit where Yahweh said to him, "Go down and give this warning to the people of Israel, lest they rush to see Yahweh, and many of them perish. Even the priests who come near Yahweh must purify themselves, lest Yahweh break out against them." Moses answered Yahweh, "The people cannot ascend Mount Sinai, because you yourself ordered us to put limits around the mountain and set it apart as holy." Yahweh replied, "Go down and bring up Aaron with you, but do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to Yahweh, or he will break out against them." So Moses went down to the people and said to them, "God spoke all these words. He said, 'I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. Do not have other gods before me. Do not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything in heaven, or on the earth beneath, or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, Yahweh your God, am a jealous God. For the sin of the fathers, when they rebel against me, I punish the sons, the grandsons, and the great grandsons. But I show steadfast love until the thousandth generation for those who love me and keep my commandments. Do not take the name of Yahweh your God in vain, for Yahweh will not leave unpunished anyone who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. For 6 days you will labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath for Yahweh your God do not work that day, neither you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servants, men or women, nor your animals. For in the 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and the earth, and the sea, and all that is in them. But on the seventh day he rested. That is why Yahweh has blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that you may have a long life in the land that Yahweh has given you. Do not kill. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not give false witness against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's house. Do not covet your neighbor's wife or his servant, man or woman, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is his. In the meantime, all the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, and heard the blast of the trumpet, and saw the mountain smoking. They trembled with fear and kept at a distance. Then they said to Moses, You yourself speak to us, and we shall listen. But do not have God speak to us, lest we die. Moses answered the people, Do not be afraid, for God has come to test you, so that the fear of God may be with you, and that you may not sin again. So the people kept at a distance while Moses went forward to the cloud where God was. Yahweh spoke to Moses. Say this to the people of Israel: You have seen for yourselves that I have spoken to you from the heavens. Do not make any gods of silver or gold to stand beside me. For me, you are to make an altar of earth, and on it you will sacrifice burnt offerings and peace offerings, your sheep and your cattle. In every place where you come to remember my name, I will come to you and bless you. If you build an altar of stone, do not make it of cut stones, for you will defile it by using tools on it. And you will not ascend my altar on steps, lest you expose your nakedness on it. Exodus chapter 21. These are the laws you are to set before them. When you buy a Hebrew slave, he will serve you for 6 years, and in the seventh year he shall go free, with nothing to pay. If he came alone, he will live alone. If he was married, his wife will live with him. If his master gives him a wife, and she bears him sons or daughters, the wife and her children belong to her master. He will live alone. But if the slave says, I love my wife, my master, and my children, I will not go free, his master shall bring him to God. He will take him to the door or the doorpost. Then his master will pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him for life. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, She is not to go free as men slaves do. She does not please the master who intended her for himself. He shall let another redeem her. He is not to sell her to foreigners because he has broken faith with her. If he intends her for his son, he will deal with her according to the rights of daughters. If he takes another for himself, he will not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. If he fails her in respect of these three rights, and she has to go free without any payments of money. The man who strikes another and so causes his death shall die. If he did not want to kill him, but as it were, let it happen that I will give you a place where he may find refuge. Instead, if a man willfully attacks another to kill him treacherously, you will take him away even from my altar and put him to death. Whoever strikes his father or mother shall be put to death. Anyone who kidnaps another and either sells him or found holding him captive shall be put to death. He who curses his father or mother shall be put to death. When men quarrel and one strikes another with a stone or with his fist, so that the man is confined to bed, but after that he gets up and walks about with the help of a stick, the man who struck the blow will not be held as a criminal. He will, however, pay the injured man for loss of time and see that he is completely healed. When a man strikes his slave or his servant with a rod, and the man dies at his hands, he shall be punished. But if the slave survives for a day or two, he will not be penalized, since the slave is his property. If men are fighting and a pregnant woman is hit, so that the child is born prematurely but she is not injured, the one who hurt her will pay the fine demanded by her husband and allowed by the court. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. When a man strikes the eye of his slave, male or female, and the eye is lost, he will let the slave go free in compensation for the eye. Or if he knocks out a tooth, he will likewise give the slave his freedom. When an ox gores a man or woman for death, the ox will be stoned and its flesh will be eaten, but the owner of the ox will not be punished. If the ox had gored someone in the past, and its owner had been warned but had not kept it fenced in, and if later it kills a man or woman, the ox will be stoned and its owner put to death. If the owner, however, is allowed to pay a fine to save his life, he must pay all that is demanded. If the ox gores a boy or a girl, the same law applies. If the ox gores a man or woman slave, the owner of the slave shall be paid 30 pieces of silver, and the ox will be stoned. When a man leaves a pit uncovered, or when he digs a pit and leaves it open, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit will make compensation to the owner of the animals by paying him money, but he may keep the dead animal. When a man's ox injures the ox of his neighbor and it dies, they will sell the live ox and share both the money and the meat of the dead animal. Or if it is known that the ox has been in the habit of goring and its owner has not kept it in, he must make good the loss by giving the neighbor a live ox. but the dead ox will be his. If a man steals an ox or a sheep, and either slaughters or sells it, he must pay 5 oxen for the ox, 4 sheep for the sheep. To God be all the glory, honor, and praise in the reading of the Holy Scripture. Amen. God bless you, dear viewers, till our next reading.